I just try to keep everything as stupidly simple as possible. I have only wholesaled to like 3 or 4 different people.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's episode of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is a Monday, and this is the Scale Show. And our goal with this show is for you all that are growing and scaling real estate businesses to hear from other investors that are just like you and kind of in like that build stage of the business process, right? And so today we have Dalyn Hazell, who, how long have you been with us in Scale for, Dalyn? Like about a year, maybe?
October, almost a year.
Yeah, so coming up on a year. But you are a really awesome investor that I'm super excited to dive into because you have done really, really well diving into like a singular market. And when we were on one of our community calls the other day, some general KPIs came up and you were dropping these numbers, like these cost per deals, like I've never heard before. And so you obviously have a good little I would say system figured out for you there. And so really quick before we dive in, maybe give us a super brief rundown, who you are, where you're based, and what your team currently looks like.
Yeah, I appreciate being here, guys. So I'm in Springfield, Missouri. I'm a wholesaler, buy and hold, fix and flipper. Right now, I have got a full-time cold caller on my team. I use Call Porter for my answering service for the direct mail. I know you guys are big fans of Call Porter. Mm-hmm. And I have a lead manager from the Philippines, and I do all the acquisitions and all the dispositions. I've got 26 units, all single-family homes with property management is completely outsourced there so that I can focus on just acquisitions, dispositions, and making a lot of massive income like we talk about on this show.
There we go. Awesome, man.
I want to interject real quick because I don't want to lose this thought. Did you have property management from the start, or did you get to a certain unit count before you outsourced that?
So I hired out property management at 10 units. Mm-hmm. So long enough to know how bad it sucks, but I still know what goes into it.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's an important, and people always talk about getting a property manager right away. I do think it's important to manage your own units, at least for like a short time, because it forces you to, I don't know, learn the hard lessons, even though that sucks. It is a valuable thing. But that's awesome though, dude. So you're basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, you are like the sole worker for your business. So you said an admin, you have a cold caller. And so the lead gen stuff, the stuff that's sort of like easy to outsource is outsourced, but you're doing the entire soup to nuts acquisition through exit process all on your own.
Yep. I'm still going on appointments, making offers. I am my own realtor too. So I dispo and, off market and on market. And that's how I like it. I mean, as opposed to a lot of people who just want to scale for sale's sake, I like doing it. I like being in the business, and I make a lot of money in it. So it's like it's not like I want to ditch that right away. But that's where I'm at.
After a while, it gets grindy though. And so you said you do wholesale, you do flips. Obviously, you're an agent. What's like your primary exit strategy? Like if you have a choice about what you're going to do when you look at a deal, what's your preferred?
So right now I'm doing about a third wholesale, third flip, and a third rental. That's actually. Lately, it's gotten more away from rentals just because of interest rates, but third wholesale, third flip, and a third rental. That keeps the cash in the account, short-term, long-term, and really long-term, I guess, for the rentals.
Are you, because I'm also doing some wholesales and flips right now, and doing the whole soup to nuts, it takes a lot of time, especially with a more in-depth flip. So do you have a GC that's doing some of these, or are you kind of subbing out some of the projects as they're going along?
I do have a GC. So yeah, hiring the GC, hiring the property manager, I mean, that took away dozens of hours a week of work so that I can still be a solopreneur, so to speak, and really still not work that many hours a week because I'm just focusing on like making offers and selling. Yeah.
If you have to drive out to your flip, it's in 30 minutes there, 30 minutes back plus there. That's an hour and a half that could have been making calls, right? And so what's the opportunity cost look like?
Yeah. I make like 2 trips to each flip.
Yeah.
2 or 3 tops.
Yeah. To be fair, I do feel like a lot of people, they are over present at the renovations, mostly because they don't want to be making the sales calls. I mean, I used to do that shit. Like I would like go out of my way to like go and visit a property just to, for some reason, because I wanted to procrastinate on all the calls I didn't want to do.
But you still felt like you were doing some work, right? So it felt okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So nice. That's great though. So you got a good little team around you that are all, I would say, like outsourced or like subcontractors. So as we kind of talked about, as we got into the show, your cost per deal is something that's really fascinating to me. And so you said you have a cold caller. How, I guess, what is your full like marketing pyramid look like? Like, how are you getting leads and deals for so cheap? And also, what is that number, if you don't mind sharing too?
So yeah, cost per deal with direct mail since January 2023 is $1,952.
Okay, under $2,000, which is killer. Yeah.
Yeah. Cost per deal on cold calling is $1,448.
Yeah. See, that's crazy.
Totally. And what are you doing on a per month basis as far as deal flow?
So deal flow, I'm only doing like 3 deals a month.
Okay. That's great though.
I wouldn't say
only. That's like, that's good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
So, okay. So you have under 2,000 for both. So I mean, like average between those, what, $1,700. Like, what do you think is, I would say, the secret to keeping that low? Because I mean, we harp on this a lot on the Wednesday shows, around typical. In fact, the one that we recorded this past week, we talked about how to tell if somebody is bullshitting their numbers, right? And honestly, by the standard that we talked about on that Wednesday episode, you would be somebody that I would call bullshit on. But you being a scale member and me seeing how your business is going, I know that's not true. So I guess, how do you think you're so effective with your marketing or your sales, or like, why is your cost per deal able to be so low?
Yeah, and to be fair, I was kind of afraid to share these numbers because I know you'd call me out on that. But you know, after doing so many deals, it's like, oh, really? That is the cost per deal. The main factors that go into it is just being in a smaller Midwest market.
Mm-hmm.
My market's about 150 to 180,000 people, and so that helps. There's not really a lot of big institutional buyers here. The second being, I've just gotten really good at sales, like converting people, knowing who's my ideal customer, and just being straight to it. Like, hey, this is what I can do. And then really getting granular on the marketing, knowing what works. So I switched over to open letter marketing with you guys back in January. And that's really helped get my cost per deal down even further because I can mail more people for fewer amount of dollars. Yep. I was using ballpoint marketing before, but just found that the cost per deal got a little bit too high. And what I've learned is that people just, especially with the ROS postcards, people just want an offer in their hands. And rather than like beat around the bush about all this stuff, like which a lot of people talk about, like rapport building and stuff, which is still important. I mean, at the end of the day, people are mostly focused on the money that you can give them. And I just want to spit out as many offers as I can and talk to as many people as I can. On the cold calling side, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. It costs me $1,000 a month for a full-time cold caller. So I can go 2 months without even getting a single deal, still to be at a $2,000 cost per deal. And so when you're getting a lead a day, I mean, if you can't convert 1 out of 60 leads, then there's probably a bigger problem.
Sure.
And so that explains the cold calling.
Well, Dalyn, real quick, so a couple things. Are you still hitting like the niche list, like all the prop stream subset lists, or are you doing any kind of different marketing, like maybe that's directly from county, or things that might be a little bit different from the general consensus?
I used to get down
list
into like the nitty gritty and stuff and check my county records, but I've gotten away from that just because I haven't noticed a lot of fruit from that. I mean, sure, I got a deal here or there, but was it worth all the additional time and having like a part-time assistant on to do all that? For me, it wasn't. But I also will say that if you're just targeting like absentee owners like I do, then you're going to have the highest probability for success. And so I've really gone hard on targeting like absentee owners, the people who are most likely to sell and who are kind of like not emotional with the property. And that's again driven down my cost per deal.
Nice.
Totally. So your main marketing list is absentee owners is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. I mean, it makes sense. That's probably 50% of our deal flow too.
Yeah, but it's funny because people are always hesitant to market to them because if you look at like the actual quantity versus the motivated individuals, they're less. But if you go back over the years, like we have absolutely gotten the most deals from just like straight absentee owners with no other niche things that are showing up. Because it's the thing with like landlords, right, is they can have these burdens, right? They can have these financial issues or things like that are kind of on the back end, but they haven't gotten as far as to like have a publicly recorded problem yet, just because they're the kind of people that have their shit together enough that they're able to afford rental properties, right? And so people tend to forget that. But as you know, all of us who own a decent number of units, expensive things happen, right? And especially if you own stuff for a longer period of time, if you don't have a vertical income that kind of keeps up with the potential expenses for a property, people do eventually get into hard spots, right? And it's important to like sort of understand that and not be afraid to hit those like larger lists. And because the great thing about absentee owners, Dalyn, like you said, is they're not usually attached to the properties. Sometimes they're weirdly attached to tenants, which I've never understood, but they do that a lot. But also too, the vast majority of the time, you're not having to worry about the security of the individual that is selling you the home, because when it's a homeowner, right, they're always going to have a lot of baggage on where are they going to go next. Whereas the absentee owner, the landlord, is like, well, where are the tenants going to go? It's their problem, right? Like, honestly. So
that's the truth of it. The logistics matter a lot to that kind of conversation. And I don't know if Dalyn, if you do this, I'd like to touch on it, but I think I've gotten deals just because I've been willing to buy places with tenants in place.
Oh yeah.
Right. Whether it be and like that, a lot of people won't do that because they're afraid they'll trash it for whatever reason, or it'll take them 3 months to get them out. But if the deal is there, you have to be willing to take on that burden.
Yeah. And as a solopreneur, like you can do those things pretty easily. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm stacking on all these things that keep driving down my cost per deal, like the friction it takes to get a deal. I do my own acquisitions. I don't have an employee doing that. Like, sure, I'm probably giving up scale, but if you're wanting, like a lot of listeners probably here who don't have a lot of excess capital, who just want to do deals, like if you set the systems in place, kind of like I've explained, maybe you tweak it a little bit, but you can absolutely get deals for very cheap still in 2024.
Totally.
Yeah. No, and one thing that you said I wanted to hit on, you mentioned the ROS cards. I'm also a big fan of those. And the reason is just because more people call you. And like you get more at bats, because even if your number is wrong by 50 grand, a lot of the times you like that will still end up being a deal.
Yeah. I signed 2 last week and I'm like, where were these my whole life?
Yeah.
Right. I wish they were around when I started, and they probably were, but you guys introduced me to them and they've been a game changer for me.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I think too that what I really appreciate what you said there, Dalyn, about, the fact that you are doing a lot of the work yourself and, you're giving up scale. I don't know when this started, but I feel like I talk to so many prospective business owners / investors who approach the business with this way of like, they feel like they need to pursue massive scale, like immediately. Like they haven't even like done a deal yet. And they're already like asking me like what my org chart looks like. And I don't know if it's like the Cody Sanchez, like buy a business thing, or if it's like they've listened to a lot of Alex Hormozy and his $100 million net worth and all that sort of stuff. But it is perfectly okay. And also honestly expected to need to go into a business and work your ass off for the first, like honestly foreseeable future until you will know when it's time to scale or if you want to do it. And so I guess from your perspective, do you have ambitions to scale? Are you kind of just happy doing your thing and you have your lifestyle? Like what are how are you comfortable in that grind mode? Or are you just like kind of down to be that way?
So to me, it's not really a grind. I mean, I work 4 to 6 hours a day. I love what I do. I talk to people that really want to sell their property because I've built those systems to screen them. Yeah, and I've amassed a decent little portfolio. It's like I don't really desire to have, a huge team, and I just want to stay in one market. I have ambitions of quitting real estate eventually to take my hands off and just enjoy financial freedom. But for now, I'm really fine what I do. And this may be like some scars from corporate America, but I really don't like being told what to do. And so for me to have employees, I don't want that responsibility, at least right now. So maybe that makes me leave some money on the table. But I like having the flexibility to scale up and down the business as I choose, rather than having to do deals. And so to do that, like I have contractors rather than employees. I have rentals that pay me income whether or not I'm working. So I don't know. It's kind of anti what maybe you guys talk about, but I'm having a blast in your community, and we're making a lot of money too.
Yeah. And let me say, it's not necessarily anti what we talk about or what we believe in. I would say that a lot of the stuff that we do on like social media and then around the scale and those sort of things, honestly, it's because that's what people want to hear. I mean, like I work 12 hours a day in my business most days, and I'm happy doing that. Like I enjoy that. And then going back in time, and I mean, I know Dalyn, you were the same. We spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, weeks, months working, making nothing for a long time. But that's how you build like that foundation. And then as you start to grow, you can figure out what you want to do. Honestly, I'm not against hard work. I promote a lot of like the scale and that sort of stuff because it's what gets people to reach out to me to potentially join scale and be a part of our bigger picture stuff. So,
but like Dalyn's a member and he's perfectly content with where he's at, and he still gets valuable nuggets. Like how many did you point out already? Open letter, driving down your cost per deal, like all these other things that are just, you don't get these unless you talk with other operators.
Yeah, totally. And and the scale of the operators, I've come to find as I've grown in entrepreneurship, and I'd be curious if you guys have found the same thing. But when you're a business owner and you're like doing the thing that's like against sort of the societal norm, there's like this game recognizes game sort of effect, regardless of how big your business is. Like you can talk to a wholesaler that does 20 deals a month and have a great conversation, you doing 3 deals a month, because you fight kind of like the same battles, right? And you've gone through like the same growing pains and everything else. It's just at a different level of volume. But communities as a whole, I think it's really important to sort of find.
Well, I want to touch on that. There's actually a local guy, 2 guys here that I know that they're all about scale, and they did it. They scaled up. They're doing 20 deals a month. He shared with me, like they make less money than what he was a single operator, just because of all the overhead and stuff that goes into that. And you're probably working not if as hard, but maybe twice as hard for that too.
Yeah. But
right. So there's scales to this. I don't know.
It gives you flexibility as a trade-off. Cause I never made more money than it was me and Dan and 2 team members. Like that was the highest personal income I've ever had. But now I can screw off to Japan for 3.5 weeks and nothing stops. Right. And so that's the trade-off
totally.
that you get.
It's like what Brandon Turner says, like, I know how to get a 6-pack, but do I want to go through that hurdle to get a 6-pack and all the work and maintenance? And I don't know about you. I mean, I don't really want to go through all that. Those 12-hour days that you went through, Mike, to build the team you've gotten. I mean, you're probably glad you did, but it's like for people who haven't gone through that yet, that's a big trade-off.
Yeah, really.
Dalyn, when did you start in off-market real estate?
So I bought my first rental in July of 2020, sorry. But I took off-market real estate seriously in April of 2021, and I replaced my corporate income at the time in 4 months.
Nice. That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great. And I'm assuming the net worth with those 23 units has gone like a hockey stick as well.
It's absolutely been incredible.
Nice.
So I say that for the audience to hear, like it took him, Dalyn, 3, maybe 4 years, with probably a very significant increase in net worth just from now he works 4 to 6 hours a day and can continue that machine.
Yeah. But, and the funny thing is that's very quick, honestly. But I think when you're starting out, like it feels impossible. And so, but in looking back in time, it's always crazy how fast that can actually happen when you put your nose down. So going back to your cost per deal and your sales process, do you mind kind of going through like what exactly your sales pipeline and process looks like as a solo operator? So you said that you have call porter takes your leads. From there, I guess what's your daily cadence? How are you balancing like the new leads versus following up with the older ones? How are you balancing that with going on appointments and time management? To disposition, like that's a whole other process. What does your like full pipeline look like right now?
Yeah, so leads come in either from direct mailing, cold call. I do SEO, and I do a little bit of referrals.
Okay.
But the lion's share of actual deals is direct mail. Cold calling I just use to kind of like fill the time when direct mail is up and down. But essentially it's the same way. I always shoot for an in-person appointment, and that's really gone well for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people do this nowadays, but I go for the contract at the appointment.
Cool.
That's really helped my conversion rate. And me being the owner and not having to go through like a middleman or an acquisition manager, I can underwrite it before I get to the appointment, make the appointment. And and hopefully get the deal on the spot.
Yeah. And how quick are you usually pushing for that appointment? Are you doing it like first call? Are you building rapport and doing, setting up a time? Like say you get a lead that came in on Monday. Are you trying to go to that appointment Monday, Tuesday? You pushing out to the end of the week? Like how aggressive are you on that first in person?
As soon as possible. But if somebody's not looking to sell for 6 months, then I'm not going to like waste my time to go there because a lot could change in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I really try to work with the people that are looking to sell in the next 60 days. And then I always want to meet with the decision maker. Obviously, you don't want to meeting with like the sister, and she's not even on the deed. So
sure.
It's all sales.
Totally. And then on the dispo and TC process, so how do you balance doing all of that with all your acquisitions? Like, are you selling it to the same couple of buyers every time on your wholesale stuff? Are you doing like walkthroughs at your properties where you're trying to wholesale? So
this is where, and I hope you get the drift of, I just try to keep everything as stupidly simple as possible. Yeah. I have only wholesaled to like 3 or 4 different people.
Mm-hmm.
I've probably left money on the table, but it also means I don't have to do like mass showings. I send one text and I know they're going to buy it. I sell to a couple of turnkey providers and then a couple of people that are like just hardcore flippers. So I don't have hundreds of people on my buyers list. I think I have like 50, but I end up just texting the same 5 people each time.
Yeah.
And that's just kept it simple for me. I don't spend a whole lot of time on dispositions. I'll list my own stuff as a realtor. So I don't know. I just try to keep everything as smooth as possible. And it's probably costs me, less money on the table, but then again, maybe not, because I don't have to hassle with a bunch, like hire a dispo manager,
the opportunity costs of
sign up for investor lift and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. I just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Dalyn, when you get a deal like that, and let's say one of your top people don't want it, would you then take it down yourself and wholesale it, or has that been any part of your strategy?
Yeah, I've done a ton of wholetailing. I actually do more than that than wholesaling anymore. Which with that, the biggest thing that kind of changed for me is when I started getting lines of credit to take down properties, and this just comes with being in one market and just building relationships. So there was at one point I called every bank in town and I said, "Hey, patch me into your patch me into your commercial department." And I took him to lunch, told him what I'm trying to do, and like I was shocked at secured lines of credit that I would just get, and this made me no longer like a slave to a couple buyers. I could take it down and relist it if that's what the deal warranted.
Yeah.
What's kind of like the price point that you're buying at?
So my typical deal, buy it for sub 100 and maybe put like 30 in it and sell it for like 180. But it's been all over the board. My first deal I bought for $6,000 and wholetailed it for 30.
$6,000.
Wow.
It's like,
is that sorry, no,
go for it. Like that. That's like less than, like you can't do anything for $6,000 in my market. Like
no, that's like a tiny roof.
Yeah.
But my first deal was actually pretty good too, but that was almost because I was ignorant and I underwrote it as like worst case scenario. So I wonder if you had a similar experience where I just kind of got lucky and I ended up, procketing like 20 grand. But
yeah, and that kind of goes back to like when I knew that real estate investing was for me is I was still at my corporate job and I got a call from this homeowner and they wanted $6,000. I'm like, what the crap? Is this just an infill lot or something? But then I looked on Google Maps. I'm like, no, it's a house. And ended up taking it down. I didn't have like DocuSign or anything. I made him like print out the contract and send it back to me. Had no clue what I was doing. Took it down. Immediately listed on the MLS for 30 and got an offer that day. So
nice.
Boom. The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah. And so if you look at everything from like a higher level view as a solopreneur, what do you think has like been the most valuable like system that you've integrated that's been the most like pivotal to your success so far?
The most valuable system I'd say is Call Porter, just because they can take all those calls inbound while I'm out on appointments, with family, whatever. And it's just so easy to plug and play. Mm-hmm. Like I try to look for those things that don't require a W-2 employee, but that have like immense benefits to me, like time saving. So that's call porter, that's a property manager, that's a GC. Like I don't have to have them on salary, but they do so much good for my business, and they're incentivized to get the job done because they're paid on the results. And so I just try to do that as much as possible.
Yeah, it's so funny to me though with Call Porter because we've used them for years and we always try to get people to use them. People will be so resistant. Like people will go and like hire like their mother-in-law to like work with them full time to answer the phone instead of having Call Porter. Because like there's always things like, well, how do I know that they're going to do a good job? Or they'll have like the Call Porter rep takes like one poor intake call, right? And they're like, well, I need to cancel. I'm going to go find my own VA that's going to answer the calls instead. I'm just like, why? Like realistically, a bad first call is better than no first call at all. And you know, everyone makes a mistake. You think this random VA from the Philippines is going to be perfect on every single intake call? No. And you're gonna have to manage that person. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I feel you there. That's been a great one for us too.
Yeah, that has never been an issue. I've never had a seller say, man, that person on the phone was terrible. I mean, it's almost like sellers expect that first call to be bad, because you're just talking to a secretary or you're just talking to, and you go to any other business, you're not expecting to get the homeowner on the first call. So that just needs to, people need to not believe that anymore.
Yeah, the only issues we would have with them in the past, because they're, it's I'm not just a full shill for Call Porter, but we do use them a lot. They're American-based call reps, and my business is in Spokane, Washington. We were early. And so what they would do for a long time is they would like pretend to be local. And they would say things like, oh, hello, this is, Becky from Spokane, and they would like say the name of the town wrong. And then immediately that's a red flag and that would turn sellers off. And so we ultimately had to train them, like, stop pretending like you're local and just say that you're with like a call center and that the business is going to call you back later. And that solved all of our issues like right away. But I think that they were learning that themselves as they were building out their business.
The worst part for me is when Call Porter kept mispronouncing my name, and it's like, is it Dalyn or Dalyn? And I'm like, I just had to keep telling him it's Dalyn, because if you don't even know my name, then how sketchy does that seem to a seller?
Yeah, totally. But
they need like the pronunciation, spelling, like DAY. LOIN. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, good stuff. Any other questions you want to ask Dalyn before we dive into our end of show?
No, I think we've covered a lot, and I think it's been a good episode.
Yeah, awesome. So cool. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you hopping on and sharing all these little nuggets, and congrats on success you've had so far. It's always cool to see the, I would say like the one person operations and how they kind of build it out, because it's like such a different beast, and I feel like it's an underappreciated part of entrepreneurship that a lot of people try to skip, and you just can't do that. So cool. So we have the same 3 questions that we ask every single person that comes on the show. And the first one, which is always the crowd favorite, is what is your craziest real estate investing story?
So I thought about this question, and a lot of your guests like mention horror stories or bad stories. I actually want to mention a good one.
Yeah.
Because I had a buddy that was wholesaling a package of 13 houses, and he didn't have a buyer. And I knew a turnkey shop in town was looking for a portfolio. So, and I had already wholesaled them a ton of houses at this point. So we were on good terms. So I made one phone call, connected the wholesaler with the buyer, and I got paid out a $35K like finder's fee.
Nice. For like 5 minutes of work, probably.
One phone call.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah,
but it all goes back because you built that relationship however long ago, right? Yeah. So that's important to
awesome.
that.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Great. What's that per hour? Was 35,000 times 12 a lot? Yeah, like 500 grand, almost not quite, like $425,000 maybe. But
it's like Mosey money right there.
Totally. Yeah, right. Very, very cool. All right, second question. If you could go back to the very beginning, what's the one thing that you would do differently?
I would talk to more people and share what I'm doing, but specifically I would talk to more banks. I was trying to look for answers that you guys hadn't heard before. Banks really have been my best friend in real estate, being able to give me tons of, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars in line of credit that I didn't even think I deserved. And just being willing to be flexible, like, hey, can I close this property next week? And they're like, sure. Just having those relationships have been tantamount to my success. So talking to more banks really is what I would do differently.
Yeah.
On top of that, this has just popped in my head. When's the last time you bought a rental?
A rental, I'm under contract on one, but the last one was like February. I mean,
I'm just
been a
curious
while.
what kind of rate and terms you're seeing right now from maybe one of your local lenders.
Local lenders, right now it's prime rate, so 8.5, 8.25, 8.5, which is kind of painful, but they will, they have like little to no fees, so they have a very low. It's not like a Kiavi or a one of those where they charge you thousands in fees.
Is that still like a 75% LTV? Is it an ARM? Is it fixed?
It's fixed for, well, usually I can negotiate that. So I've been fixing them for 1 year, just because I think rates will go down, hopefully. And then I know there's another product where they let you track with prime, or you can just go like 3 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The funny thing is like what you guys are talking about, there's probably people that are listening that don't even know what that means. But like back when I started in real estate, 2008, 2019, banks were what that's like what you did to get money is you went to banks, you went to lenders, you got lines of credit and you figure that out. But for some reason over the past couple of years, I don't know if it's like the Pace Morby thing or what, but everyone started getting obsessed with this. Like I need to raise money from people or I need to use OPM or whatever. And like, it's amazing to me how many, I would say like newbie idiots that I've met that refuse to go to a bank because they don't want to have debt on their personal name. I'm like, you understand that's how this business has worked for like 100 years. And now because there's affluent baby boomers, that have HELOCs, you think that you should just go and con them into giving you money because you don't want to take personal responsibility for your project. It doesn't make any sense.
And I bet Dalyn's lines of credits are better than 12 and 2.
Totally, right? Yeah.
So, with your raising money, is it really that much savings?
I mean, when you're getting 0 points and 8% interest. I mean, that's almost like going to
that's
boomer.
perfect.
I mean, and that's a line of credit. So I haven't used hard money in years because I haven't needed to.
Mm-hmm.
I got sick of paying 3 points.
Yeah,
a long time ago.
Yeah, and for people who flip, you'll understand the hidden costs of some of this stuff at the back end of a deal. Like it is $15,000 to $20,000 a lot of times just on interest.
Yeah,
and fees.
One, understand too that if you're new and you have a lender that says they're going to fund something 100%, or they're going to like give you this like lower rates, and like it's a loan that sounds like way better than all the competition, there's always going to be a catch-22 on that. So a thing that I've seen really, really common right now is you'll have these hard money lenders that will do 0% down hard money loans at like 9% or 8%. That sounds great to a newbie. Like, hell yeah, I don't have to come out this money. I don't have to come out with a down payment. But then you go and you look at the HUD, they're charging like 5 or 6 points. And the thing is like, sure, that's less than a down payment, but that's literally just fees. If you put a down payment, you get that money back when you refinance or you sell the property. If it's fees, that just goes away forever. And sure, you're only putting 5% or 6% down instead of the 10 plus points that they want, but now it's gone. Like it's just
it's a sunk cost,
and people ignore that for some reason. And then same with like our local bank that we work with, Dalyn, is the same. We can go and like literally now, if we're going to get a long-term loan, we just text them. They do a drive-by appraisal. We still have to usually have a down payment or stake in the game. We don't get 100% financing, which I think you do sometimes. But we'll have like a doc fee, which is like $900, no points. And then our interest is usually, prime in a bit, whatever it is. So it's pretty dang good, like all intents and purposes. So very awesome. Great advice.
Well, I think this has been a great conversation. Dalyn, where can people find you, follow you, and reach out?
So just to add to more of my going against the grain, I'm on LinkedIn.
What? All right. Well, no one's going to find you there.
Right? No. Yeah, but I am pretty active on LinkedIn and Instagram. So it's just my full name, Dalyn Hazell, DALYN HAZELL. And I'm also in the Scale community.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. So if you are a random white guy in an ill-fitting like button-up shirt and you want to go wish Dalyn a happy birthday, go on LinkedIn or you have your bot or VA or whoever does your LinkedIn for you. Go wish, make congratulations on his job anniversary that he hasn't updated in 6 years. So
Hey, it's coming back, man. Gary Vee said it's coming back.
Sometimes I think he says stuff like that because he's trying to like force his own like opportunity, right? Like when he was super into NFTs a while back, it's because he was selling NFTs. I mean, I don't know. He's a sales guy. But anyways, Dalyn, dude, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate the time, man. And you guys, definitely go and reach out to Dalyn on LinkedIn and tell him that you enjoyed the show today. Remember, people do come on these shows because they want to engage with you. They want to share knowledge. And if you can't tell, Dalyn's a very nice guy and is more than happy to help any of you guys out. Also, please share the show with anyone that's trying to grow or scale a real estate investing business. I'm sure there were some great tidbits for your friends of all different real estate levels that were on the show today. So appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.